today.
Emily, you have had a lot of experience with a lot of people, possibly even some famous people. Tell us what are some of the characteristics that you've seen in some of those high achievers that you've been associated with?
So I sort of thought, I got linked this question, so I've thought a little bit about this, and I feel like there's a couple of important things. Like, in terms of famous people, like I've met Obama and George Bush and interviewed Richard Branson, and there's a man named Bob Grayson who is, maybe this might be a little inside baseball, but he's a retail king. He was the one who basically took Victoria's Secret from a one shop and turned it into the brand that we all know today. He also came up with the whole idea of outlet malls. There's a guy who, Frank McGuire, who I interviewed, who was the head of Kentucky Fried Chicken and co-founded FedEx. And he was 100% about his employees. Like, you could say he was a genius. He kind of came up with the spoke and wheel model, which allowed FedEx to deliver packages in a totally revolutionary kind of way. He would not take credit for anything. It was all about his employees. Like I have a funny quote that I wrote down. I remember him telling me that, first of all, people don't leave companies, they leave supervisors. And that when people leave a supervisor, it's often a talent that the company didn't even know that they had. But he also said that he really liked people who were committed. And I said, even like involved in the organization, like passionate about it. And he said, no. He said, when you eat your breakfast in the morning, he said, you look at the bacon, you look at the eggs. The chicken was involved in the eggs. The pig was committed to breakfast. He was like, that's what I want. And I think he was the kind of person, and I'll say all of those men were the kinds of people that, much like what these guys are talking about, really humble. I'm working on a book about the first online gambling company, which was launched in Antigua by three guys who were option traders in California. Moved to Antigua to sort of start this new industry. It was 1996. Nobody was doing anything, in terms of gambling online at that point. They also came up with the idea for fantasy sports. Really cool guys, super humble. All of these men, incredibly humble, incredibly confident, not cocky. I'd say that that's an important distinction. People often say you have to be really confident and you have to present yourself as this. That doesn't mean you're perfect. That doesn't mean that you know everything. That really just means you are excited about your abilities, and in a lot of cases, it means you're really self-aware about what you don't know, and that you are hoping to build a team of people who can fill the gaps that you are not good at. Likewise, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some women on my list, because I think women entrepreneurs are often underscored because they're not typically the leaders of huge multinational corporations the way that we see most men sort of get those roles. But there's a woman named Robin Anton who started the Pussycat Dolls, and she would tell you that she's a choreographer. This woman is like a spitfire entrepreneur. She is dynamite. She basically came up with this idea to build a lounge in Vegas. She did a TV show. Her brother had a reality TV show at one point. She launched clothing lines. I mean, she was like a branding genius at the time. And I don't know that anybody really gives her credit for being an entrepreneur. I have another friend named Melissa Farrick, who is a singer, and she's really sort of like a rock star in a lot of ways. But what I know her mostly, or I admire her a lot for, she was streaming music online and got rid of, a lot of the sort of extra overhead of agents, managers, lawyers, all these things that people in the recording industry assume that they need, and that all take a commission. And she basically worked with an indie label that was able to sort of produce records for her, and then she started streaming on her website before anybody else did. And I feel like what I really, in this list, what I would say is that these are all people who are super passionate about what they do and about problem solving. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. They see an opening in the market, they have an idea about how to fill that gap, and they collaborate really well by being really good listeners. I would say that's another trait that is clear. And I'm a reporter, so I value the ability to listen, but I also like to talk. So I have a real respect for these people who are leaders, and a lot of people are really in admiration of them when they're with them. And what I've observed consistently in all of these men and women is that they have the ability to ask fantastic questions, and listen to your answer and follow up in a way that makes you understand that they're really listening to you and that they're actually really interested in your advice. And criticism that they get, they take very seriously because they want to improve. And I think that goes back to the confidence element for me, that they're confident enough that you can be critical of them and it doesn't shatter them and it doesn't make them aggressive towards you. It makes them say like, well, actually, that's something that we thought of and that's something that we're working on. Or, we thought that actually wasn't as big of a problem, as you're making it out to be or whatever. But you can have a conversation with them in a way where you realize that they've heard your criticism, they'd already thought about it, they can answer you, or they hadn't thought about it, and they really want to look into it. And I think that makes people feel connected to that person, which makes them loyal to that person, which makes them want to work for that person, which makes them naturally a leader and somebody who's able to sort of build. And the lead character in this book was really thrown into the situation. He started as an assistant, and the main founder came back to the United States to face criminal charges against him, and nobody thought he was going to be prosecuted because they were in Antigua, which was a sovereign country, and he was. And so when he was sent to prison, where he served his time was at Nellis Air Force Base, so he woke up with a view of the Vegas Strip, having been convicted for gambling, so that was obviously a tough pill to swallow. But the main character is somebody who took the reins, ran with it, was the first person to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I need help. Can I, collaborate with this person? Can I bring in a team? He had gone to Berkeley, so he brought people from Berkeley that he trusted down to help him run the company. He grew the company tenfold, and he launched an industry that's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. When I sit down to talk to him, where I've spent hundreds of hours in the last year with him, he's constantly telling me what he doesn't know, and he constantly has a book with him that has something to do with some sort of like philosophical idea or political idea. It's not about gambling, but he's always learning and he's always trying to sort of engage himself through that discovery process. So I'd say those are really, when I think about like what makes good leaders or what makes successful entrepreneurs, I'd say those are the sort of key characteristics that I have seen repeatedly. People in very different industries.
Yeah, so we all have a lot to learn. In light of current events, with the Trump administration, we come from it, we're in an international business school, and we're all really interested in globalization. And I'm sure you, out of all people, should be more familiar with this subject. Also because, like we discussed earlier, all of us, we were talking about how Trump is really anything that's non-United States, he's really cracking down on that. So what do you think about this? How do you, can you tell us a little more about this subject, how it'll affect us, and what we could work with?
Well, I should start by saying I definitely don't have any sort of crystal ball or any way of predicting what is going to happen in the next 4 years. I would say that the research that I've done in the last year about the WTO has been really eye-opening for me as an American, in that I don't think that most Americans have any idea what these agreements are all about, how complex they are, how little transparency there is, how hard it is to get records on any of this stuff, even though it's our government doing it. We could take this it's a very complex topic, so I'll try to keep it focused. But for instance, the way that we have a separation of powers in the United States, Congress is supposed to make the laws, right? And the president has the right to do executive orders, but it's really supposed to be congressional decisions. Congress represents the states. Right now, all the trade agreements are being done through the executive branch in an office called the USTR. Congress has approved these laws that are called fast-track laws that basically say that they have a vote up or down, and they have to vote within 30 days on any trade deal that comes through. Trade deals so that's a very short amount of time to go through all these documents, and we know that Congress is pretty dysfunctional in their ability to even read bills in the first place. So the other key part of this that I don't think most people have any idea about is that the way the Constitution is written, we have something called the Supremacy Clause, and it basically says that the sort of national laws supersede state law, right? And in the United States, state sovereignty is a huge deal. The fact that Massachusetts can approve certain things that Connecticut says are illegal, that's sort of our right? And that's a big sort of foundation of this country. But international law, foreign treaties, supersede state law, right? So now we have international agreements that we're agreeing to that trump state law. So the way it is currently, if New York or Massachusetts decided that bananas were toxic, and we had a vote, and we decided, you know what, we're gonna ban bananas, we would be in violation of international law. And the international law trumps state law. So we have a whole framework that is dissipating in terms of the separation of powers. We have a framework that has checks and balances that are not happening anymore. And I think we have we have this idea of free trade, and I would say that the research that I've done makes it very clear there's not free trade. Like, there are markets that are open, and there are sort of regulations and things that are in place that hardly make it free in terms of the way that Wealth of Nations would have described, or some sort of more simpler explanation of it. So, to go back to your question about Trump, I think that there's a level of rhetoric about we're going to get out of all these international trade agreements. That would cost us billions and billions of dollars. And we have multilateral agreements with a lot of these countries, right? So we are in the WTO, which has 167 members, I think. And we also have agreements with Mexico, right? We also have agreements, we're trying to do, agreements with nations all over the world. So if we got out of one, that doesn't mean we're out of the others. And there's a whole lot of power in this, right? So people want their TVs to be a couple $100s, but they don't want their jobs to go overseas. Some of this stuff doesn't really add up in terms of the practicality of how this works. Is Trump going to be really popular if everybody has to pay $10,000 for their flat screen? No, I don't think so. So I think that there's a lot of wait and see. I think Trump is definitely trying to return a favor to those who voted for him on the idea that he was going to bring jobs home. And I would caution that anytime you start strong-arming a business into not doing what is profitable for that business, that is a very short-term solution, right? So if we have major corporations that have found that it's less expensive to hire people in foreign countries, that's probably in the best interest of all of us, because that is, not just elevating the level of those workers in that country. You don't have to care about that. But it means that our stock prices and all the other things here are also more secure. There was a Boston Scientific study that came out about a month ago that basically said that the manufacturing in the United States was not investing in the next sort of level or wave of production technology because the American public wasn't educated enough to handle it, right? So most of these manufacturing things are not people anymore, they're robots. And if we haven't trained people how to use the robots, then even if we did bring the jobs back, we wouldn't have people to run the factories. So the fact that we're not investing in the education to handle this next wave of manufacturing, I would argue that's the solution for him. Get people up to speed on what this technology is, and then maybe you could bring some of the manufacturing back. It's not going to look like it was, and we're not going to have a coal renaissance, right? I don't think anybody believes that to be true. But there is opportunity. There are some entrepreneurs that I've talked to who are working on trying to get low-income communities, teaching them to code. There's such a demand in Silicon Valley for coders, and it's not a skill that's impossible to learn. And in fact, a lot of high schools are teaching